Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on becoming an independent consultant solicitor. My name is Amanda Walsh, and I will be moderating today's session. Firstly, I would like to thank you all for joining us here today and for showing your interest in this particular topic. We are very fortunate that we have a distinguished panel of experienced solicitors with us today, and I'll begin by introducing the panelists to you, starting with Darren Gibson, Managing Partner here at Gibson Associates LLP, Neil Buckler, Independent Consultant Solicitor, Karen O'Shea, Independent Consultant Solicitor, and Wesley Hudson, Independent Consultant Solicitor. Before we begin, I'll just outline to you the format for today's session. Darren will start with an introduction about the ICS model, followed by Neil giving us an overview of his experience of the team since he has joined. Neil has been with us for over 2 years now. And afterwards, the panelists will talk for approximately 5 to 6 minutes. And thereafter, we'll have a quick question and answer session where we will deal with the most frequently asked questions. So Darren, I'll start with yourself. Would you give us an overview of the ICS model and talk us through how it has evolved and developed over the last 2 years?
Brilliant, thanks very much, Amanda. Yeah, look, since inception, we've always had an ambitious team of people who are interested very much in improving the level of service to the end user in terms of Irish legal services. And they wanted to do that by really focusing heavily on customer service, but also providing a great environment for all of the stakeholders involved in that business, solicitors and all of the people that engage with that business. So we, through organic growth and also through acquisition, over the years we've acquired a number of different legal practices. And because of the growth that we had and because of the acquisitions that we made, we really had to gear up on some of the supports that were required to take that forward. Those supports included marketing expertise, operational management expertise, financial management expertise, and certainly more recently people management expertise. And we found that having onboarded all of those skill sets for our own business, that we could really use those to fuel the growth, to support our own ambitions, but equally that platform could serve lots of other people, lots of other experienced solicitors, because we definitely formed a view that the legal profession in Ireland is very polarised. We've got big firms one side and a lot of small practices on the other side, and that disparate nature of the smaller legal end of the market, we felt wasn't necessarily serving all of the clients as well as they could if economies of scale were brought into it, where lots of solicitors could basically plug into the same platform. So we opened our platform to other solicitors so that they could benefit. And really what we were looking at was a situation where solicitors who were trained to provide legal services got the opportunity to do that without all of the administrative burden that comes with running a small legal practice. Because I know myself from travelling that path, that certainly when you're setting up a legal practice and in the early days, and it continues, the administrative burden is quite significant. The financial management, the regulatory piece, the risk management, and it's all become very heavy, all necessary, it all has to be done, but it's a significant burden, and it's come to a point where really, really good lawyers, people with great experience, fantastic expertise and lots to offer, are not given the opportunity to do that because they're weighed down by that administrative burden. So we wanted to free them up, and we wanted to obviously grow our own platform. We wanted to engage that expertise, and ultimately we wanted to serve clients and consumers of legal services better.
Thanks very much, Darren. And now we'll hear from Neil Butler, who is leading out on the ICS programme. Neil was the first solicitor to join the team, and he's been with us for over 2 years now, and he's going to share some of his experiences with us.
Sure, and hello to everyone. Delighted to have the chance. I suppose 2.5 years in is a good time to cast one's eye back and not just keep looking forward. But one of the changes for me was a wish to change after 27 years in sole practice. And I came across the concept by accident, really, when I was looking to change my website, and I fell on Gibson's site. Colouring and the format of the site was so strong and positive. And then lo and behold, here was this tab about an independent consultancy. And the word independent, it's so necessary to keep that in its naming. It's core for me, and I think for the others as well. I worked for myself for 27 years. My father worked for himself, not in the law. So it's inbred into us almost. And the independence is a key piece of what I've delivered to clients as well. So being able to preserve the independence, but also leverage the skills, the expertise that Darren referenced in terms of financial management, marketing, in terms of compliance, in terms of regulatory knowledge and consideration, and being able to tap into an executive team who, let's be honest, are strong because they're not lawyers. I think that's been one of the key things for me. The 2.5 years, it's a growth thing for me, has been. And I think probably it's fair to say for Gibson's too, and we'll maybe reference that a little bit later. But the concept started out, and each of us, in terms of Gibson's team and myself, we learned from each other as I was onboarded. I'm lucky enough, I have a fairly decent understanding of systems and processes. So I was able to jump the hurdles that were put in the way of winding down a practice and then transferring data across. And I think between both sides of the Gibson and Neil Butler input, I think we've developed a strong program whereby we can walk the pathway of change with those people who are interested. I've learned a lot in my own processing through this. I know how to manage the data transfers. I know how to manage the wind downs. I know what the test points are. I know what the good points are, if you will. And sharing that is part of what the package offers. So it's been very positive for me, even on a personal side. The balance, harmony, if you will, that I have is centered on choice. The choice of what work I want to take, the choice of when I want to do it, the choice of how I want to deliver it. All positive.
Thanks very much, Neil. Very, very insightful, actually, and a very honest appraisal. And I suppose following on from that then, I assume that when somebody is making the transition from being a practitioner to an independent consultant and working within a team in that particular format, that brings about certain challenges and certain hurdles that people have to adopt to. So Wesley, if I could come to yourself, from that perspective, how have you found being a member of the team? And in particular, how have you found the work-life balance that you've gained from being part of that team?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Amanda. So I think just with, I don't want to run the risk of repeating a number of things that Neil's just said, but I think it's not an insignificant thing winding down a legal practice. It's a significant piece of work to undertake. So I think that's the first thing that I reflect on. It's likely one of the biggest things you'll ever do professionally in your legal career. So I think it is something. I'm going to go into the sort of the psychology side of it to a degree, because I do see it as a bit of a psychological journey, whereby you're sort of migrating away from your prior identity to effectively a new identity. And I don't think it's something that is a sort of guillotine approach where you just sever it and you move on. There is a sort of transitionary period, both with adapting to systems, but also your identity adapting alongside it. So, I think that one has to be sort of open-minded about that, and one has to be very cognizant of those pieces, I think.
Mm-hmm. And from the point of view of work-life balance, Wesley, how have you found it?
Yeah, so personally, I what I reflect on is what my motivations were in the first instance for doing it. I've a young family myself. working 50 to 60-hour weeks was pretty normal in my own legal practice. I don't believe that's unique to me, but it was certainly that was the norm as opposed to the exception. So I just sort of felt that something had to change for me personally. I have certain specific family obligations, and to answer your question, that I have noticed that change. I feel it's slightly more liberating. I certainly feel I've more freedom. And to go back to Darren's points at the outset around the regulatory burden and all the additional administrative burdens that go with running a law practice, big or small, is not insignificant. So it has been liberating being able to set some of that aside.
Great. Thanks very much, Wesley, for that. Karen, I might move to yourself. I know you previously worked as a sole practitioner and you ran your own practice. So could you talk us through the administrative benefits that you've experienced since you've joined the team?
Well, as you said, I was a sole practitioner in a rural practice. I had 2.5 support staff and myself. I was working 7 days a week, trying to keep up with all the administration, the regulatory compliance work. I found I was doing more and more of that during the day, so I was bringing the work home at night time to try and get the work done, because otherwise you weren't getting the service or providing the service, should I say, to your clients as efficiently as that I would like to. Talking to colleagues, they all seemed to be in the same position, but I was saying there had to be something else. I can't keep going this way. So I heard about the ICS, and one of the great selling points of the ICS was the assistance with administration, and the fact that I wouldn't have the responsibility of a client account until about 12 months before I joined. I was doing all my own accounts and everything as well, so just more and more pressure on myself. So by joining Gibson's, I now have the support from the post. All goes to either Dublin or Letterkenny, one of the two offices, and it's scanned in there, and everything is scanned. So all enclosures and everything with the post are scanned in. That's a huge assistance to me, because it takes a substantial part of the day to do that kind of work, and it means that my assistant is free then to do more of the admin that I won't say admin, it's the typing and getting the legal work done for me, rather than spending her day filing and scanning and then saving the scans into the relevant matter. So as well as scanning the post, then each individual post item is emailed to me, so I don't lose out on any time by the fact that it's going to Dublin or Letterkenny. The post, I see it the day it arrives in the office, and I have access to it straight away. It also helps then that it makes me, I can log in anywhere, I can work anywhere. I don't have to be sitting at my desk, and I don't have to carry the files, because again, I would have been carrying files from work to home, trying to get the work done at home. So that helps then with GDPR, because you're not at risk of losing a file or misplacing it, between the office and home, and trying to get the work done. Also, the other assistance is that I don't have to do the account side of things. They're all written up. I request funds when they're there to be paid out, and the accounts team deal with the transfers. Again, I let them know if I'm waiting on money, and they let me know the minute it's there, so that then I can request the payment out. So there's no time dealing with all of that. The file opening is another huge assistance. You can do some of it yourself if you wish, but you can also get the client care team within Gibson's to deal with everything from anti-money laundering, compliance, to the terms and conditions of engagement and the estimate going out. So all of these mean that the work that I was spending so much time doing can be done within the Gibson's support team, and I'm freer then to work on legal matters, which is what I want to be doing. I don't want to be spending my time on compliance and administration, because that's not what I trained in, and it's not where I want to be. And just those facilities are all available to an ICS without paying anything extra. So you're not paying a staff member as an ICS to do that work. It's included. There is a facility within Gibson's if you need to employ an assistant, and that is extra, and that is that you come to an arrangement with Gibson's for that. But I myself have my own assistant, so I don't need that. But definitely the assistance with the administration and the post is huge for me.
Thanks, Karen. You've outlined a lot of efficiencies there. And linked to that topic, Neil, I might circle back to you. You might give us a little bit of insight into the technological side of the ICS model and how it works.
Okay, well, like most things nowadays, the emphasis is on cloud-based utilities. So the case management is cloud-based, and as a result, it's accessible within protected channels anywhere. There's an excellent IT support contract team in place to Gibson's, and it's one of the little pluses on the side that they will support me within reason in terms of the odd tech hiccup I might have. And they're very responsive, the team that's employed there. So, broadly speaking, a solicitor ICS needs a reasonably up-to-date computer. 2 to 3 years old, it would be the outside of it. You need decent broadband. You need a mobile phone and/or phone system. Now, we all use Office 365, so most solicitors, I would be certain, are using it themselves in any event. Outlook, Word, all of that. Teams, Microsoft Teams is the main communication channel. Most people would be familiar with it just as a video phone utility. It's so much more, and it's one of the things that I like to think I'm helping as a contributor to Gibson's. So the ICS is a two-way street. There are skill sets that we're finding amongst the ICS people that contribute back into the Gibson team, in the same way as we're drawing from the Gibson expertise and existing teams, as Karen suggested. So that duality, I think, strengthens the concept, and it strengthens the participation that all of us feel. And it's one of the things that probably a little unexpected and maybe not thought through for us at the very outset. I'm also seeing it on a sideways piece, as in the ICS helping each other, going across instead of up and down. But on the tech side, it's really not that challenging, because you'll find that you're using much of what is needed already. It just has to be adjusted slightly. But that is done. There's the contract IT people will put a little utility on your laptop or your desktop, and it'll go from there. So that's, it's really not that much more complex. Training is offered, and I'm available, and there are others available to assist with, can you remind me how to do this? That's what we're about. It is genuinely a team effort.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. I'm conscious of time, so we'll just move to our question and answer section. And Karen, I might come back to yourself, and you have already touched on it already in terms of outlining the efficiencies that you're experiencing. But can you talk to us about how your lifestyle has changed since you've joined?
Yes, I have an improved lifestyle. Now, there is a time, obviously, when you're winding up your practice. There's work to be done to get onboarded, and then there's a settling, and I'll call it a bedding in period, when you've got to get used to the way things change. You're not in charge anymore. You are independent, but obviously we work within the Gibson model, so we must follow the Gibson way of doing things in that way. But once you bed in and get used to all of that, I don't work weekends anymore. Very, very rarely. And I'm working towards taking 1 day a week off as well. So I'm hoping that by the end of this year, I will be on a 4-day week, and that I will not be working weekends or late evenings. And so far, I'm almost there with the no late evenings. And generally, if there is a late evening, it's because I've had to do something else during the day, and I come back then to catch up on those hours. But definitely the work-life balance for me has hugely improved with getting my weekends back. And as I said, I'm onto maybe a 4.5 day week at the moment, and that's just me being nervous about not being available on that 5th day, as opposed to not being in a position to really take that day off and do things of other interest to me. But I have definitely had a huge improvement in my quality of life and what I'm doing and the time to do it. And I know Neil may say that's better time management, which I've been working on as well. But I think removing the huge administrative burden of compliance from what I need to do on a day-to-day basis has provided the time within the workday to get the work done.
Okay. I think we can always improve in time management, Karen, all of us. Wesley, we've talked a lot about professional benefits, regulatory benefits. Can I talk to you specifically about the professional indemnity insurance and what your experience has been in relation to that issue since you joined?
Yeah, so I think professional indemnity insurance is really the perennial challenge, I think, for all law firms. You don't have to go too far to talk to a solicitor who complains about the level of their cover, the level of premium for their cover. So it's an ongoing challenge. The Law Society survey has it right at the top of challenges, in fact, for law firms. So it was certainly one of the motivating factors that drove me to want to change, because I just felt that it didn't make sense. That the level of payment and premium that had to be applied. So that, as I said, was a motivating factor. So, in the context, obviously, with moving and winding down a practice, you obviously have to follow the Law Society guidelines. The first port of call is to notify the Law Society that you are closing your practice and follow the appropriate guidelines that are set out by them. They'll also want to know that you've been admitted to the runoff fund, which is insurance cover for a period 6 years post winding down your practice. So there is a process involved in that. The Law Society have it all set out and well documented. So insurance, as we know, is an integral part of what we do, and for very good reason. But it has become a challenge and a barrier for smaller firms. There's no getting away from that fact.
Okay.
So.
And I suppose not having to deal with that yourself on your own is I would assume, a great relief.
Yeah, I think, absolutely. There's undoubtedly a massive relief in not having to deal with that on an annual basis. Yeah, there's no doubt that all the lawyers don't relish October, November time when they're filling out their common proposal forms to multiple different brokers and insurers. I say in jest, it became a bit like the sort of annual raffle. You just didn't know kind of what premium you were going to get tagged with on any given year. So no, look, it was slightly unjust in my eyes. You work very hard all year long, and then sort of at the end of the year, you were sort of met with this. So removing that is welcome. There's no two ways about that.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Wesley. Darren, I'll come back to yourself. We've obviously touched on a lot of benefits, a lot of advantages. From your own perspective, what would you say are the personal benefits of the scheme?
Well, first of all, and I think Neil touched on it, and it's a personal benefit, but it's also a business benefit, is the amalgamation excuse me, of that expertise. Okay. All of those different solicitors with all of their different experiences, and them bringing all of that expertise to the table. Excuse me, there is a heightened level of collegiality when people join the ICS model. It's a little bit different from having groups of sole practitioners or smaller firms or colleagues in other firms. Yes, you do feel comfortable to pick up the phone to them, but it's different here. You jump on Teams, you pick up the mobile, you call them, and you can tap into a
closer connection.
Without a shadow of a doubt, and for me that's been huge. And as I say, Neil touched on it earlier, and it was probably one of the things that we we didn't maybe anticipate to the extent that it has occurred. So that has been fantastic, and I think that level of expertise and experience from all of the different ICSs leads to a personal growth opportunity for all of the other stakeholders in the business. So I have to say that is probably the single biggest. And I mean the other aspect to it, I mean Karen touched on it and Wesley touched on it as well, as the ability to generate with that heightened level of expertise, with the business management skill sets that we have, not having to do those tasks that we weren't necessarily trained to do, leaves you that you're able to crack on with the stuff that you're good at, that you like doing, but also you get to achieve your career objectives that a little bit faster in the day, which allows you then to focus on the other stuff that's important to you, family life, sports, or whatever pursuits or interests you have. You have that time to get into those things. And I think ultimately, we're in the business of solving people's problems. That's what we like to do. I think that's all lawyers have a draw to getting that done. And what this does is it allows us more time to solve more problems, which ultimately serve the consumer of legal services better.
Thank you. Well said. Neil, I'll circle back to yourself. One question that has cropped up a lot is, on average, how long does the process take from making the decision to join the team to ultimately becoming an independent consultant?
I suppose there's no one size fits all, Mandy, even though your question might expect an answer that there is, but all our practice styles are different. So, let's be honest here. There is work involved, and Wesley referenced it, Karen referenced it. I suppose for myself, I made my decision in the August of 2020, and I was on board on 1st of December. That's a magic date in that my PI had expired. So we're dealing with a couple of people at the moment who wish to come on around the 1st of December. And that's purely a function of wanting to run out their PI, but also recognizing that in one case, there are a number of cases that are ready for hearing that have dates coming on, and you simply can't change midstream. So I would say you want to allow 6 months probably. Now, some of that is guided preparation by myself because of our experience. I have a schema, a visual drawing, a step plan that hits the various elements that you need to focus on. So you don't even, I don't mean this tritely, you don't even have to sit back and wonder where to start. We have that figured, and we have the experience of dealing with the runoff fund. We have the experience of dealing with the Law Society, both of whom have been supportive. And in fairness, the runoff fund, the model has been tested, and it has not been found wanting. It's been accepted, and they sought their own legal advice. The concept stands up. So we have all of those elements developed. That's not to say that going forward, and even currently, there are little tension points in terms of how we want to deliver service and certain little gaps that were unforeseen. But, you're head of legal, and we work with you to collegially try to solve those. Rome wasn't built in a day, but we're open to learning. That's the key to it, and being responsive in a participatory fashion. I've been tasked by Darren and the team to lead out the ICS program, and I'm thrilled to do it. I'm fascinated to see it grow, but I want people to know that I'm happy to take a call for an informal chat, or you can offer me a coffee and we can simply chat through. There's no obligation, but information is important for you to have if you are approaching a crossroads as to what next for your practice. That was me 2.5 years ago. I was delighted to get early engagement with Darren and Mandy and the team, and I want to offer the same to you.
Thanks very much, Neil. Sadly, we are running out of time. I hope you found our webinar today informative and useful. As a gesture of our gratitude for participating today, we would like to share with you an exclusive guide that provides a comprehensive overview of the ICS model, which we hope you will find useful. To download the guide, please click in the description below. Finally, just on behalf of myself and all of the panelists here today, I would again like to thank you for joining us and for participating. And if you've any questions, please feel free to reach out to us, and we look forward to seeing you at our next webinar. Thank you very much.